medication twice a day. It was just like having an IV. And then once a week, the nurse would have to come out and change it. But that medicine was a steroid, and it kept me alive. It kept me going. I was getting energy. And in the meantime, I was trying to get my bones built up and walk. And I would, after I had my truck accident, I'd broken my shoulder, my legs, and my wrist, and I was having to walk with a boot. And when I came home from Tyler, I was in a wheelchair. She had to push me everywhere, even put me in the bed in the wheelchair. And then I went in and had therapy. They had to teach me how to talk because in my car wreck, I hurt my head and had bleeding in there. And I had to learn how to walk and talk, and part of therapy was doing math. And I had a therapist in home health care that got me out of the wheelchair, got me walking with a cane, and got me off the cane, and I could walk up and down my driveway, which I live about 120 yards off the highway. And the last person that I had to see to get approved for a heart transplant was my surgeon. And my surgeon told me, he said, I can't operate with you if you're on a cane. He said, you'll be disqualified. So he said, I want you to throw your cane away and walk down the hall. And I walked down the hall, and I came back into his office, and he said, I can sign you out. And at that point, after the board met and the 30 doctors met in Baylor, they called me up and said, congratulations, you're qualified for a heart transplant. So I was on the waiting list. And that was in January, end of January. And I would have to have my blood checked every week, because if my blood pressure got too low, they couldn't operate because I bleed to death on the table. And so I'm on the waiting list, and I'm waiting, and I'm growing weaker. And I want to tell you, when you're dying, your body tells you you're dying. Nobody has to tell you. And I got a call one night. When you're on the transplant list, you can't live more than an hour and a half away from the hospital. I got a call at, what was it, about 11 o'clock one night, and said, we have a heart for you. So we drove from my house to Dallas, and I went up, and they prepped me for surgery, and they did all the blood work, and they got me ready to go, and they said they'd come back and take me down at 6 in the morning, and they did. They brought me back, put me down at 6 in the morning. I'm waiting on my surgeon to come in. Dr. Meyer walked in, and he was late coming in, and he said, we got you a heart. He said, I'm going to tell you, he said, I didn't like the looks of that heart. He said it was a little large for you, and it had some fatty tissue, and he said, I'm not going to put that heart in you. He said, I want you to go home. He said, but we were devastated. He said, you know you're getting close. And he said, we'll keep you alive. And he said, I want to find you a good heart. We went home. And a few days later, it was about 3 weeks later, I was sitting at the table one morning, my wife and I were having a devotional. I knew I was dying. I planned my funeral. Told my wife I wanted open to preach my funeral. But told her what songs I wanted. But sure, I was going to come out. A couple days later, that evening, I was walking up and down my driveway. And that night, at 11 o'clock, I got a call to come to Dallas. It was hard. We drove up to Dallas. They did all the tests. They checked my fraction level. It was less than 8%. All on my left side of my heart was gone. I had 8% of my blood flowing. I weighed 135 pounds. I'd gone from 210 pounds to 135. I didn't have very much longer to live. I went in, they prepped me, I went down. Dan Myers come in and he said, I got you a heart. He said, it's a young heart, it's a healthy heart. And so we went in, and 6 hours later, they ripped my heart out, put me in UNN, and I was physically reborn. The average stay in a hospital after a heart transplant is from 30 to 45 days. I want you to know, by the grace of God, I walked out of the hospital in 5 days with the heart of a 20-year-old with an effraction level of 65%. It's a miracle. I was physically reborn. My old heart has been donated to research. Last year, we got to go back to Dallas, and I got to be able to see my old heart. It's been put into a jar. Doctors get to come and look at it and study it. It was dissected. They put it together after they went through the autopsy with me. They put it together with a rubber band, and I got to hold it, and I got to give my second heart to my wife. So I've loved her with 2 hearts all my life. And after my heart transplant, I called Olin up and I said, Olin, I hate to tell you this, but I beat you out of your pastor gratuity. You're not going to be able to preach my funeral. But God has been so good. He's given me an abundant life, a full life. He gave me a new life. One of the things that I've intended to do is to be doing some heart seminars and symposiums, and I worked with my surgeon. We were going to be doing with my surgeon and my cardiologist doing symposiums for doctors and nurses and people, because you see, people don't really realize what they're going through and what heart problems can be. I went from heart disease to heart failure just about overnight. I came as close to dying as I guess anybody, and may have died a couple of times. But my flesh and my heart, they may fail, but God is my strength. The strength of my heart and my portion forever. I want to thank you for your prayers. I want to thank you for what this church has meant for me. And the folks here have been in my heart, both hearts, for many years. I have a lot of good memories as a young preacher here. I have a lot of good memories with some of the saints that have gone before. And I want to thank you for all of your prayers and your pastor in this church, what it's meant for me over the years. We never know about tomorrow. We're all creatures of clay. We're all going to be facing the Creator one day. And this old body of flesh and blood is going to fail and disappear. The only thing for certain is eternity. I learned 3 things when I went through all this. Whenever you grow weak and weary, you have to learn to stand on the promises of God. You have to walk by faith, and you have to embrace the relationships of the people that you love. Those three things are going to get you through anything that you face when you go through it with Jesus Christ. He wants to give us a new heart, a new life that is full, meaningful, eternal, and abundant. And if you don't know him today, you need to meet him. Because he loves you more than you love yourself. Brother Owen, I thank you.
All right, thank you, Brother Dan. God bless
Oh,
you.
I want to, Marilyn, would you come up here? I wrote a book about my journey, and it's sold on Amazon. You may not be able to find it now, it's still sold on Amazon, but I've got a book on my journey, and if anybody wants it, they can go through Olin and get it, but I'm gonna present this to your pastor and his wife. It's an autographed copy, and I thank you so very much for all you've done, and I even have one of Olin's sermons in there that meant so much to me over the years. But brother, I appreciate you, and I
Well, we
love you.
appreciate you, Brother Dan. We love you. We sure
I'm not supposed to be hugging people because every morning I destroy I have to take heart rejection medicine. I kill my immune system every day, twice a day. But I'd rather go home than be quarantined, so. I love you.
Love you, Dan.
Thank you very
We
much.
love you. I tell you, thank you, Brother Dan. I think that's enough sermon for today. I tell you, Dan, we love Dan and Kathy, have known them these years. They were here starting out in Peru. We came home from Brazil on a certain occasion for a little time, and they were pastoring here. Got acquainted back in the 70s, and we've had a long and wonderful journey together.
First time I met you was at that parsonage.
Right over here. Yeah, we were back in those days. It even had a coat for Brother Dan at Caesar's Palace, at the bar, Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas one time. He had led the bartender to Christ out there.
He's still alive, and he still calls me, and half our church was Mormons, you know that.
Right, yeah. Wonderful. And I tell you, the occasion of having Brother Dan here, you all know that we've gone to Toledo Bend for revivals through the years, 4 or 5 and all that kind of thing. Pastor and his wife down there, Cliff and Joyce, are the good friends of ours. The Shadlers. And so Cliff called us, I guess this last week, to say that Joyce was facing transplant for her heart. She was bed-faced. And so this gave us the idea to get in touch again with Brother Dan and maybe share his book and his testimony with Joyce as she's going through this kind of thing in her life. Anyway, thank you, Brother Dan. Now stand here today, we love you, we've seen God use you through the years, beginning right here in the room. I tell you what, Larry, I guess if you postpone your piano special, I'll postpone my sermon until next week, okay? I want to preach on why bother the master. That's the topic that you find, and I guess you have it there on the screen, don't you? Why trouble the master? Well, we know we trouble him because he loves us and will listen to us when we have need. And he's concerned about the needs that we have, large or small. When you come to the 5th chapter of the Gospel of Mark, you'll find that there are a lot of needs in that chapter, but the master met them all. So I'm going to ask you to stand, and we're going to have an invitation time. If God's Spirit's spoken to you this morning about a need that you might have in your life, to trust Christ as Savior, whatever that need might be, we invite you to respond. Brother Elton, thank you, my brother, for leading the music again today. Let me give you this back.
Page 436, where he leads me. Thank you. I can hear my Savior calling. I can hear my Savior
We're gonna be dismissing together the family of God.